Hello, my writer friends. Welcome to Write with Intent. I'm Mindee Arnett, sci-fi and fantasy author, bringing you all the tips, tricks, and tools of the trade that I've learned on my publication journey to help you along with yours. Today on the vlog, we're going to be talking about the oh-so-important topic, how to find an agent. Let's get started. All right, before we get into how to find an agent, let's talk about the reasons why you want an agent in the first place. I know some of you are probably indie published or thinking about doing some kind of publishing that's non-traditional and maybe wondering whether or not an agent is worth it for you. And while I can't actually speak to that because I'm a traditionally published author, I will tell you the reasons why I chose that route and specifically why I wanted an agent. The literary agent works for you in the same way that a sports agent does, which you've probably seen on television.
Show me the money.
But rather than representing just you as the writer, which they do, they actually represent your work. So the books you produce, it is the agent's job to make those books presentable, to help you make them publishable, and then they go out and they pitch your books to the editors and get the editor to buy your books. So you can probably ask yourself, well, why do I need this middleman person to, why can't I just go and sell the books myself? Well, there's several answers to that. The first of which is that most publishers these days do not take what we call unsolicited manuscripts. So they don't take manuscripts from the average Joe off the street. Because there are so many people that are trying to publish books, there is a process to kind of validate the quality of the submissions they're receiving. So in order to even get an editor to read your book at one of the big 5 houses, so HarperCollins, Random Penguin, or Penguin Random House, sorry, and the other big 5, in order to even get them to look at your book, you need to have an agent presenting the book to you. So the agent brings some some credibility to the work itself, and they also know the people that are the editors. Publishing is a really, really small community, so pretty much everybody knows everybody in some way, shape, or form. The 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
We're just like Kevin Bacon.
Is more like 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon in the publishing industry. So having an agent, especially a good one, just ups your chances of getting the book deal, of getting a good book deal, and just opens those doors for you that you're never going to be able to open for the most part on your own. I guess if you indie publish a book and it sells like gangbusters and you make tons and tons of money, then yes, you're going to be able to just go directly to an editor if you want. But even then, you still kind of prefer to go to the agent because the agent, again, represents your work. What they make is 15% of whatever you make. So they don't get paid unless you get paid. So there's that safety net there. And usually an agent will be with a house that has a legal department. They're going to know a lot about contracts, clauses, and all the things that you as the writer probably don't know and probably don't want to waste your time figuring out because it's not your job. Your job is to write the books, not to sell them or to worry about whether or not you got the best rights. The agent is going to know, though, what's in your best interest, and they're going to make sure that the publisher isn't taking advantage. They're going to ensure that, most publishers are going to want to buy all world rights to your books, which means it gives them the right to publish in any country. And while that may sound great, it's actually terrible because usually they won't bother publishing in other countries. And so an agent's going to help you retain those foreign rights. And then the agency usually will have a foreign rights department that's going to go out and help sell those books into individual countries, which ultimately is going to, number one, get your book out to more readers and make you more money so that you can keep writing more books.
Show me the money.
So all in all, agents are a 100% win. I absolutely recommend them. Get one if you can. If you can't, keep trying till you do. You're not going to go wrong going the agency route. So just in case you're on the fence, let me make that clear. And I am absolutely 100% in love with my agent. Well, I'm not in love. I love my agent. I'm not in love with her. I love my agent. She's been fabulous. I've had her my whole career. If you don't know, it's Susie Townsend. She is a phenomenal agent. She's ultimate professional. She's there when I need her. She's guided my career along and has just been absolutely crucial, not only to getting my books out there on the shelves and out into the editor's hands, but also to helping me navigate some of the more challenging things that come with this business, including just some of the insanity involved in a creative art, which we'll talk about maybe in a later chapter, a later vlog. Excuse me, my words are failing me today. All right, so now let's get into what you really came here for, which is how to get an agent. I'm going to give you 4 points on getting an agent. They are really simple. Although, of course, like most things, simple but not necessarily easy, at least not the first one. So let's start off with that. Number 1, the first thing you must do to get an agent is write a good book. And of course, you're probably rolling your eyes going, well, yeah, duh. But let me just caveat that a little bit. You need to actually have finished your book. Your book needs to not be an idea. It needs to not be just a pitch. It needs to not just be a random thing floating around in your head. There needs to be a beginning, a middle, and an end to your novel. It needs to be done. And it needs to have been revised. So if you just run through your first draft of this book and you think it is the best thing ever, and you run out and try and sell it to an agent or pitch it to an agent, you're going to get rejected unless you're like a savant or something. I suppose that there's always an exception to that rule, but for the most part, nobody writes their first book and does it so well without revising and editing that they can just get an agent. Most people don't sell on their first books anyways on an idea, and the last thing you want to do is pitch an idea to an agent and the agent go, oh, that sounds really great. Go ahead and send me the manuscript, and then not have that manuscript ready. That is terrible because the agent wants it now. And publishing, well, on the one hand is very slow. It's also very time constrained. So books that are coming out on the shelves right now were actually pitched to agents and purchased by editors between 18 months and 2 years ago. So if your agent is interested in your idea right now, they may not be interested in that same idea 6 months from now when you finally finish, because the market will have flipped. So what's hot in the moment, whether it was, back in the day, it was all about vampires and sparkly, shiny, horrific creatures and werewolves and whatnot. If you were writing one then before those books were coming out, you were a hot ticket. If you were writing one 2 years after they came out, like after the big Twilight hit and all the storms and all that, or even Hunger Games a little bit later, you had already missed the mark. So it's very, very important. Don't approach an agent until you have a book, until that book is ready. And by ready, again, it needs to not be a first draft. You need to have revised it. You need to have edited it. You need to have had other people look at it and give you feedback. All things that we haven't talked about yet, but we will soon. But just keep that in mind. Number 1 rule, you need to have a complete book and a good book. All right, number 2. Read the rules. So when you go to approach an agent, one of the best things about publishing nowadays is that agents are really accessible. So it used to be back when I started publishing, submitting short stories, there was no such thing as Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and all these cool websites were not a thing. You had to go and buy a book that was very expensive. It was a big, huge paperback book. I probably have one somewhere still. I should go dig it up and show you. And you had to look up markets and agents and read what their address was and what they were looking for, and then you had to print it all off and put it into an envelope or a letter or whatever they were requesting, and then mail it off. So it was this very, very arduous process. It was not simple. A lot of people never made it that far because of the effort involved and kind of the money involved to getting that book. Well, nowadays, of course, you've got all the resources at a few clicks of a computer, and you can find out who the agent is. You can find out who they've represented. You can find out the most important thing, which is how they want to be contacted with your idea. Now, the first part of that, if you don't know where to even begin to look for an agent, I recommend pulling a book off the shelf that you enjoyed recently, preferably the hardback book, because a lot of times the softbacks will not have this part of it. But there's always an acknowledgement section at the end of a hardback, and 99% of the time, the writer is going to give a thanks to their agent, because the agent is really important. So if you read any of my books, you're going to learn Susie's name, you're going to hear New Leaf Literary, and have all that right there. So if you love a particular author and what they write, grab their book, figure out who their agent is, and then go from there. And then go on the internet, query up that agent, go to their website. On the website, it's going to tell you how to submit a manuscript. And usually, and we'll go into more detail this later, but usually they're asking for a query letter, which we'll talk about, and some of you probably already have them. Query letter is basically just a pitch. It's a brief summary of who you are, what the book's about, and why the agent might want to represent it or read it. And they usually will want, in my experience, the first 5 pages of your manuscript. So in general, nobody wants the full book. This is like, finding an agent is like going on a date. So rather than, signing up for marriage vows the first time, they want to go on a little coffee date and have a little coffee drink and make sure that what you are selling is something they want to be picking up. That sounds really terrible, but they want to make sure that what you're presenting as a viable product is something that they are interested in. And they do that through the first 5 pages. So of course, the book needs to have been finished. Those 5 pages need to be awesome. Sometimes they'll ask for a synopsis, but regardless, the website is going to tell you very, very specifically what to include in your proposal to them. These are almost always being submitted by email. So you're going to get the email address that those are going to. They're going to, again, have very strict rules about what to submit. So the first rule number 2 on approaching and finding an agent is read the rules. Now, rule number 3 is follow the rules. You're going to be very tempted if your book, for example, if they only want to take the first 5 pages, but your book doesn't really get good until like page 7, you're going to be tempted to send them 7 pages instead of 5. You might even try and monkey around with the margins, or the font size, and do whatever you can to try and get to that 7th page. I'm going to tell you right now, do not do that. The first thing that's going to turn an agent off is for you to not have paid attention to what they asked you to do in the first place. Not only is that just annoying, because you got to remember these agents are getting thousands of queries, literally, like just so many queries from writers with books that are trying to get published.
Hundreds of thousands. 1,771,561.
So they are looking for a reason to say no. Let's just be honest, because it makes their job easier if they can just say nope and move on to the next guy. It's easier for them to do that than it is to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that, well, yeah, you bent the rules, but maybe you're a really great guy. They're not going to be thinking that at this point. They want to know some fundamental things about you as a person, because you are going to be in a business relationship with them if they were to represent you. So they want to make sure that you are, number 1, intelligent enough to read instructions and then follow instructions. Because if you're the arrogant person who says, oh no, those rules don't apply to me, that is generally not the author that an agent wants to work with long term. Even if your book is the most amazing thing ever, if you are an asshole, excuse my language, they're not going to want to represent you. So you need to present yourself as a good product along with your book. And one way to do that, the simplest way to do that, is just follow the directions. Along with that, I would also recommend that if you're submitting an email where you don't include attachments, because a lot of times these days they don't want them as attachments, but you're actually inserting it in the email itself, I recommend creating a template email, sending it to yourself and looking at it on your phone, and make sure that it looks good on the phone. Make sure that your margins are good, that your paragraph breaks are good. Really take the time to format it so that it's nice and friendly. Give the agent every reason in the world to be interested in what you are sending them. And remember, that interest really does start with you, and these little things really do matter. Reading the directions, following the directions, making your work presentable. All right, and the 4th rule to finding an agent is don't be a creeper. Now, I kind of already hit on that a little bit by saying don't be the arrogant person that sends the 10 pages instead of the 5 when they only wanted the 5. Don't be the person that, sends the whole manuscript when they don't want the whole manuscript. Don't be the person that sends 15 emails because you haven't gotten a response yet and you're really impatient. If you're at a writer's conference, which I promise one day we all will be at those again. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. Hello, I'm available, by the way, to go to conferences if anyone is watching this. Can't wait to get back there. But if you go to a writer's conference and you have a chance to talk to an agent, or let's say you run into an agent on the elevator, don't pitch your story right there, not unless they ask you to. Don't follow an agent into the restroom talking about your story. Remember that these are human beings and they might be as socially awkward as you are and not okay with talking to random strangers on the elevator, whereas they might be totally fine talking to you in a pitch session. So just remember, treat them like a professional person that you would in your day job. So if you know what I'm talking about, treat them like you would treat a teacher, with respect, with a professor, with an acknowledgement of their time and their space. So don't be a creeper. There are so many nightmare stories that I have heard and could tell you about from my own agent that she has experienced that are just the absolute worst. So just remember, you're selling yourself as a business partner at the same time that you're selling your work. And that is so important that you are not a creeper. Do not send pictures of yourself. Don't send pictures of your dog. Don't send pictures of your feet. Don't send pictures of the artwork that you think would be great to go on this book, because let me tell you right now, the author has pretty much zero input on the cover art anyways, and nobody cares. So just send the good book, write the good book, send the good book, read the instructions, follow the instructions, and don't be a creep. Because even if, again, you've written that really wonderful, awesome book, what's usually going to happen if you have an idea that the agent is interested in, they're going to ask for the 5 pages first, right? Then they're going to ask for usually the whole book. So in my case, my agent requested, I think, probably the first 5 pages. And then she sent me a response saying, hey, I'm interested. Send me the whole manuscript. I, of course, once I finished, crying or whatever it was I did, or dancing a jig, immediately had my book ready. I emailed the book, sent it off. After she read the book and liked it, of course, because we're now a thing, she set up a phone call with me to talk about it. Now, you might be, when this happens to you, it'll be the coolest thing ever, and you will be so nervous, and you may not understand what this is about. The phone call is literally to make sure that you are not a crazy person. That's what the agent's after. They are making sure that you're not a nutter, that you're not going to be the person that follows them into the bathroom at a conference trying to pitch them their book, that you're not going to be the person who is, sending them text messages at 3 o'clock in the morning because you had a bad dream that your book launch got delayed. I don't know, all kinds of crazy things. They want to make sure that you are a person that they want to work with, because the agent, unlike the editor or the publisher, is interested in you long term. So they want to create a long-term relationship with you and your work so that they can, profit and help you on your career and help themselves at the same time. The whole point is to sell the books long-term and to have a long-term career. And that is really what the agent is after. But in order to do that, you got to be the kind of person they can stand. So we all know what it's like to talk to somebody we don't like, right? That gives you the heebie-jeebies, or you find annoying, or you just have a feeling that they're probably a terrible person, or they're a complete bonehead. I don't know. You probably think some of those things about me. It's fair. I'm not everybody's flavor. But that's what that first phone call is about. So just remember, even if your book's amazing, you can totally blow it by being a creep. So keep those things in mind. All right, guys. Hopefully this one was quick and short and funny and to the point. If you have questions, I will be happy to talk about these. I hope to get my agent on the vlog in a future video soon so that we can kind of get her side of the story and kind of get what she's looking for in terms of submissions. And again, I will go through query letters and synopses and all those things in upcoming videos. But in the meantime, I want you to write with intent and live with intent, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.